We're often told that if we just tried harder, we'd be more consistent. We treat willpower like a muscle that just needs more trips to the gym. But science has proven that willpower is a finite resource. It's a battery that drains when the day has been long and so many decisions have been made. I've realized that when life gets heavy, I don't need more willpower. I need a place to put my thoughts so I don't have to carry them. A system that functions even when I don't feel like powering through. And for me, that system is built on paper. It's an ecosystem, and yes, I know that's a trending word right now, but it captures it quite well. An ecosystem of specific tools that manage my work, my life, and the moments in between. If my notebooks help me move forward mentally, there's another part of my adventures that helps keep me moving forward physically. His name is Gogi, my senior dog. And despite our journey being documented only now, he's been with me for 11 wonderful years. And on January 22nd, just a few weeks after his birthday, he had to be put to sleep due to an incurable illness. Losing my dog has been tough. It's only been a few days, and honestly, it was all so sudden that I can't quite make heads or tails of it even now. I just let the feelings come and go as they will, whether we like it or not. Today, I want to show you the 3 notebooks that make up my ecosystem. Not because they make me a productive person, but because they give me a way to navigate the days, even the ones that feel impossible. As the past days got heavy, I debated on whether I would keep filming and recording as planned, and I realized the best way to do it would really just to be authentic, to very realistically capture exactly how much I rely on my systems. When you rely on willpower, I find that you end up constantly negotiating with yourself. I tend to question, should I do this now? Do I have time for that? What's supposed to come first? I tend to gravitate towards what I'm interested in, and that's not always what's most important. Some people ask me, why return to analog when we have smartphones? While I do use an app to manage the doing, the reminders, and a capture all, the notebooks are really for the thinking. They are the friction that slows me down enough to actually see where I'm going. I have tried to make things simpler. I've learned not to use notebooks necessarily to manage all my tasks, but rather to keep me on task. The first pillar of my system is what I like to call my Lifebook. For this year, it's in an A5 Hobonichi cover. This is a space bump from last year's Lifebook, which was a sterling ink traveler's notebook sized vertical full year in the compact edition. I did a little sneak preview of my traveler's notebook in a previous video, and the cover that I used last year was this gorgeous blue one. It's the Yudo edition, and I was lucky enough to find this little polar bear with a notebook in its mouth instead of a fish. I feel that the white against this gorgeous blue just works so well. So this notebook last year housed this guy. If you notice, it fits really well. It has space for a vision board at the start of the year. I do squeeze in some words that I feel are in tune with the energy for the new year. It's just always nice to see this bright spread as the months go by. Oh, I just realized I didn't finish my bookends in this one. I did this little system. I think I wrote it in the A5, in the new one. I wrote a letter to myself at the end of the previous year with the intention of bookending the year and writing a letter to myself at the close after 365 days have passed. So I should get this done. But what I really like about it is this matrix. It has enough boxes for the different life aspects that I use to focus my annual goals on. Hang on, let me use this to focus better. Oof. Yeah, so I have spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, emotional, and financial. And then I go through what milestones or outcomes I would like for someday, 1 year, half year. For someday, these are things that might or will likely take more than a year to accomplish. But I put them there anyway as a reminder that it's a marathon, not a sprint. And it also gives me a good picture of why exactly I'm focusing on certain things in that 1 year, because it will build up over the years. So this someday is a long-term horizon target type thing. And then of course 1 year, things that are readily within my grasp over the next 12 months for each aspect. To cycle the Shimanami Kaido in Japan, which I have a video and a guide for, is one of the 1 year physical milestones that I had written down last year. It's so much easier to think about what we're dreaming of, and a little bit harder to think about how that would translate on a day-to-day basis or a more regular routine basis. That's when I start trying to craft and take a look at what I'm already doing so as not to try to change every single thing overnight. On a quarterly basis, monthly, weekly, and daily. Just small tweaks or things that can possibly stack or be optimized a little bit in order to achieve this. Sometimes there are big goals, very concrete ones, like for example, cycling the Shimanami Kaido required me to build up from 0 kilometers cycled to 35-kilometer ride, solo ride to 40 kilometers, etc. And so I had planned to rent a cross bike, which is what I ended up going for, just so that I knew I could do it and it would stack with my other physical goal, which was to lose weight and improve my cardio health. I really like these. I've come to call them boxes. I don't know what they're actually called, but things that I would like to make sure I do on a daily basis as much as possible. So that's my verse of the day. Cycle, walk my dog. So some of these might even be incorrect because I didn't yet have the habit of cracking this open. As the months went by, I noticed that this system stuck well with me. Sterling Ink also has this portion. It's the year in more boxes, but I never know how to use this. So I ended up just swatching inks when I could remember to do, but it wasn't really a very functional spread for me. So for the monthlies, what worked with me was I had this roll of stickers that had hilarious images for moods. The moods were so varied. There would be one drinking tea or coffee. It didn't have to be precise, but they were so expressive and they captured my moods as they went along each month. For the weekly bits, that's really what drew me to this system. I start my day with verse of the day, and as you notice, my handwriting is not that great, but regardless, doing this practice early in the morning, groggy from sleep, just puts me in the right frame of mind for the day. Sufficient gratitude and going through the word that always ends up speaking directly to me. The verses that I end up writing down often I find are very valuable later in the day. Yeah, I have kept this up all the way into my new system for 2026. Then I track metrics. So wake time, bedtime, number of hours I slept, AM mood, PM mood, which I eventually collapsed into just general mood of the day. The remaining space here would be for general thoughts and like stickers, etc. But I found that it was not enough space. So I did keep up with this system for quite a bit, and I just like the structure, but also freedom. I would have to be creative with the spreads, use my stickers up. I find that I don't have so much outlet for creativity when I started working. So this is a fun and authentic and uniquely my own way to scratch that itch. It had blank pages in the back, which I filled up pretty quickly in the year. That's one of the things that made me realize that I really need more space. Hence the transition to my Faded Chronicle. But before I start showing you that, I will show you this monthly graph that I picked up from My Dandelion Diaries from Danielle. And yeah, shout out to your channel. I watched so many of your videos and ink explorations before I put together my own system. So yeah, thank you. Her system tracks different variables in the form of bars, a solid line, and a dashed line. And I really liked how it would come together visually and how I could compare over the months my progress. A nice way for me to gain insights every month. And then what I added was this little sleep chart at the bottom where the blue lines are my ideal range, and you can see that I tend to fall asleep much later than when I should be. So I would chunk out time blocks 7 to 9 p.m., 9 to 11 p.m., etc. The shaded bit is where I actually fell asleep and woke up. This would help me track, on the days where I tend to be low in exercise or too tired to work out, I probably had successive days of not sleeping on time or sleeping quite late versus when I wanted to be sleeping, which is the blue line. Little insights like that in terms of sleep regularity and how it would correlate with my mood and ability to exercise really helped out. Last year, mid-year, I switched jobs for the better, thankfully, but that also meant that my system fell by the wayside and got a bit, how do I say this? Got a bit inconsistent in regards to the monthly graph. But I'm happy to say that I generally kept up with the weekly verticals right here. So yeah, I decided to go bigger. I decided to keep the same thing, a life book, which is intended to bring me closer to my goals. Because as much as I try to be a one book girly, it really just helps me to compartmentalize. I realized I also start working on different aspects of my life. So my personal goals, my projects, my work, and my art, and then my studies and memory keeping in different areas. Whenever I would try to keep it all in one book, it just wouldn't fit so well. It would also end up being so chunky that the things that I would need to capture while on the go, I ended up not lugging around that one book because it would be so chunky. So I realized I have one for life, which is my personal goals, my personal thoughts, and a space where I can pour my heart out, essentially. And also, at the same time, keep up with those metrics and track, okay, if these were the outcomes and processes that I said I would start experimenting with and exploring this year, how well have they worked for me as the months go by? So that's the purpose of my life book. Learning from the valuable insights of using this common planner in 2025, I've decided to use this 2026 Faded Chronicle planner. This, I don't know how to explain it. It's just such a nice texture. Congratulations to Tiffany for getting this off the ground. It's absolutely gorgeous. And I think it will be my book for many years to come. I'm holding myself back from getting their Traveler's Notebook sized edition because I already know I need more space. But yeah, so this one currently lives in this adorable Hobonichi. I think this is the 5-year cover. But yeah, it fits the Chronicle planner absolutely wonderfully. I did mention this in another video. My favorite Bible verse is the one about salt and light. And this cover is using art by Hiroko Kubota. And it's a cat sprinkling salt into the sea and a lighthouse. So perfect for my personal beliefs. I just find the whimsy of the rear of the cover so cute. It's a bunch of cranes, but they're actually giraffes. And there's a fish stitching up the sea. Isn't that so cute? So with my Hobonichi covers like this, I first spray them, especially my Hana Calligraphy A6 cover. I spray these cloth journals with stain repellent just to make sure that they survive me. So thankfully, my life book sits at my personal desk at home and it's not so exposed to the elements, but I still coat it just the same. And the Faded Chronicle came with this gorgeous little magnetic, the magnet is beneath it, I don't know what this is called. I hope Tiffany comments so she can tell people what this is actually called. It's just such a cute magnet and it allows me to pin things to the front. Currently I have the art card of Hobonichi's cover and more details about it. Hiroko Kubota, born 1971, illustrator, uses acrylic gouache to draw landscapes, people, and animals. And she uploads her artwork directly to her Instagram. I'll probably find a way to tag her because I've always gravitated towards her covers. Yeah, love this one. There, so I can just pin things like that and it magnetizes. This one I wanted to take the time to show. It's a printout of the format of the Faded Chronicle planner. Just to discourage overconsumption and impulse buys, I printed this out to assess how much of my current system could I lift. So if you notice, it also has a vertical weekly. This was very easy for me to decide because it's what I was already using in 2025. But it does come with an additional, more functional, I would say, weekly layout right before it. So I decided to use this space for my metrics, the sleep, wake, exercise, mood, etc. And even now, towards the end of January, I'm still figuring out how to use the rest of the layout. It gives me enough space to think out loud, so to speak, with a pen and paper. This space ends up really solely focused on my verses and room to be creative and enjoy my vertical weekly. I'll go through the actual planner with you so you can see the real size and printing of the fonts. The Chronicle planner starts with a 3-year overview, and I like that they don't look at last year because that tends not to be functional for me. You get this current year as a full page on the right, and then the next 2 years on the left. I have various projects that really will carry me through 2027 and 2028 in terms of further education. So this is so helpful for me. Excuse me, I burped. And then I have my vision board. So similar to last year, I suppose you can see a style emerging here, if you can call it that. Everything that inspires me for the year, I put it down. And my bookends are now inside this little makeshift envelope. But there's a little note here that I wrote to myself at the start of the year, and I can pull it out at the end of the year. That's a nice enough system for me to work with in 2026. So we'll see how that goes. It's quite similar to Sterling ink. So what I called boxes per quarter are also here. And I took the opportunity to be a bit more decorative and consistent with the inks I use at the very least month to month. I've stuck with blue all throughout January. And then on the left side, you get the monthly overview. And then you get these boxes. Yeah, so there's my dog's death anniversary date. The date that I had to go to the vet and let him go to sleep. So I actually brought one of my shirts so that he would have my familiar scent. And his leash. His fluffy, fur-covered leash. I'm sure he could smell that because every time I would pull that leash out, he would get so excited. So it was like we were going on one final walk together. Yeah, there's space for highlights or focus areas for the month. So you can go check out Tiffany's channel, Faded Chronicle, and the website for more details. What I really like about this is the fact that it integrates the monthly overview right before each month. And then you get the next month right before the weeklies for that month. So I thought I wouldn't like it and I would want all the monthlies together. But I realized it worked more for me because I wouldn't be tempted to pre-plan in the months ahead and end up erasing everything because my plans tend to be very optimistic. And this monthly overview 1 line a day page would be so close to the vertical weeklies that I really open every day, happily and regularly and easily, that it would be easy for me to fill this up. I have space for highlights, the inks I'm using, any realizations, and my plan is to put the monthly metric graph, which you saw earlier in my Sterling ink, over here. So there's room for that. And I get the data from the metric section up here. While I'm lifting my daily metrics from last year, I just let myself explore. So week to week, these things you'll notice are changing, but my vertical weeklies are still the same. So I use a blend of stickers and ink, no pictures. So in a bit, I'm going to explain why. But yeah, week to week, I've been able to keep this up happily. And even last week, I logged what happened with my dog. In the span of 1 week, he went from okay and being my morning and evening walking buddy to not being around anymore. Last Wednesday, just generally being a bit lethargic and not even wanting to walk, which was the first sign for me that he was not okay. He stopped eating on Thursday, so I brought him to the vet and they had given me antibiotics, but he just stopped eating altogether. He would lick it a bit, but he didn't want to touch it at all. So I said it might be best to have him confined and I would visit him, and he still refused to eat. He would be able to get up and walk for a tiny bit and then he'd just go back and lie down. And he seemed to be in a great deal of pain. So I brought him to the pet hospital, which was further out, but they had handled his cases and operations before, and it seemed quite serious. So I brought him there, and they had all of the machines to do more detailed tests versus the first vet that I had brought him to. You'll notice here on Wednesday morning, I was still praying that he be healed. After work, I got a message that said the ultrasound revealed he had a tumor pressing on his aorta. This was pushing fluid into the spaces around his lungs, and the life ahead of him would just be always draining the liquid. He would not be comfortable. He would not really be able to walk as he used to, and the doctor really recommended that he be let go. It was a really tough call, and you can expect that I was bawling this evening, and in the morning, he was scheduled for euthanasia. So I am grateful that my family was with me for such a challenge. They loved him a great deal too. He brought so much light into our days, and I will briefly light this so that I have something to focus on. Anyway, yeah, so like I mentioned, I brought my shirt and his leash, and I asked him if he really wanted to go, and he looked me in the eyes and was quite loopy because I asked the doctors to give him a solid pain medication just so that he experiences one day of not having to go through that painful state. And he was put to sleep with all of us around him, smelling familiar scents and hopefully happy. If you watched my other video where I talk about how he came to us, where it was actually an accidental or unintentional adoption, he chose us. So I really wanted him to know that we were so grateful and he was the best dog that I could have grown up with. He saw me through graduating university and getting my first job and going through my first challenging relationships and going through a big illness too. He was with me from when I turned 21 to now, when I'm turning 32. Like I said, sometimes I'm inspired to sketch his beautiful fur, and that doesn't always end up so well. But yeah, so even on difficult days like this, when I look back, I remember exactly what I was feeling as I would write these things. And they capture very well things that might not necessarily be visible in milestones or achievements, but just in the day to day. Apart from tough things, of course, they contain joy. They also contain scripture, energy management, I suppose is a good term to use for that. I have this little note on a post-it, which is attached with washi tape, so I can readily just keep lifting it to remind me which sections to go through just until I'm quite regular with the things. The monthly overview, that's the new thing that helps me when I take a look at on a day-to-day basis. Week to week, I migrate this while my morning brain has not kicked in yet. A reminder of what to go through when I pop open my Lifebook. It goes through the cycle of horizontal and vertical weekly layouts and monthlies, and then you get to the end of the year. And then you get so many notes pages. So I think you get 233 to be exact. I love the space. I thought the A5 would be too big for me, but I have so many words if you haven't noticed yet. So this is just absolutely great. I'm not super organized when it comes to my index or collections. I let myself be because this is just thinking out loud, but with a pen and paper for me. For this year, I had a couple of words. I think I will add one to this. Knocking around my head early this year in the new year, and I wrote them down just because I know they will prompt certain things in me as the year goes by. And the new word I would like to add is, I'm going to focus on writing properly, is memory. Taking the time to remember things, loved ones, people, pets, and just generally making space for things. That feels right for me right now. That feels enough. And then I have my same framework. So SPIREF, spiritual, physical, intellectual, relational, or social, emotional, and financial, the list of outcomes. And I tried to add like a purpose, but I realized not enough space. Overall, I summarize processes below because some of these processes actually touch on multiple things. As an example, daily worship touches spiritual for me, physical because it gets me out of bed with purpose, and emotional too. It helps balance my mental space for the rest of the day. And it's also, in a way, an intellectual exercise because it engages my curiosity when it comes to scripture and Bible study. I'll probably have a video up on how I do that in a sustainable way throughout the year. It's actually most ideal for me when I define processes, habits, or daily routines that target more than one eventual outcome. This is my more detailed project section. I have a couple of projects this year, which I will talk about when I release the video on personal curriculums, but I list out what those projects are on the left, the target output for the year, and then how I will build it up quarter to quarter. When I talked about my quarterly joy journal, the same thing applies. It's easier for me to think of the year in 4 chunks rather than 12 or 52 weeks. And quarter to quarter, it allows me to sort of shift gears a bit better than a monthly would. Then I have my adulting log, which many in the journal community talk about. I track my medical, dental, ultrasounds, my car, so oil changes, tires and brake pads, whether I flip the mattress or clean the AC filter, also cleaning pens and changing ink, but honestly that happens on a month-to-month basis. I'm pretty sure this will fill up fast, just like my Sterling Ink vertical did. And if you notice, not sticking in pictures and only staying with stickers and ink and words just keeps this little guy not so fluffy. That brings me to my next book, which is my Traveler's Notebook. So I'm pulling this guy out again. This Yudo cover is my favorite. I can't wait to bring it to Baumkuchen in LA and when I visit my sister and have it customized. But even now, it's just so functional and chunky and well loved, if you can see. This houses my quarterly insert. Last year, it housed both my Lifebook and quarterly insert. Now, because my quarterly inserts, if you want more detail about it, you can check out my earlier video. But, oh, I'm going to get sad again. I just remembered what was in here. But yeah, we're moving from super structured planner, not really super structured, but enough structure to get me to see trends and insights, to something that prompts very visceral, tactile, sensory memories, pictures, and images. And I'll probably have to pull out my Hobonichi robot again to cover it up. But yeah, so this is the first quarter of 2026, and as you all know, one of the most impactful things that happened during that time is my buddy, my best buddy, my non-judgmental furry walking partner who gets me out the door with all of his whales. There he is, passing away. So in the coming pages, I know that I had stuck some ephemera and memorabilia in regards to that. What I do with this system is I have a basket that keeps the ephemera that I want to stick into here throughout the week. And then on the weekends, as much as possible, I try to go through my phone photos, print them, and stick the pictures here. There's space for me to write a bit, and there's still lots of space for the photos. I have these date stickers because, again, this is unstructured, but it helps me to sort of visually see how much was in January, how much was in February, etc. The first eventful thing that happened to me in the first quarter of this year is the sudden cropping up of my further education path. That's why I wrote, when the why is clear, the way appears. This is the spread of the day when I had to let my buddy go. After I went to the vet, I had to go to work. So I kept things together. I attended my meetings. And then I walked home. And for that leg of my day, you can expect it was a river. I was crying in a river, just letting go, going through the emotions. Couldn't really believe that my best buddy was gone. And then the shirt that I was wearing that day, when I hugged him and they put him to sleep and I felt him go limp, it was covered in his fur, of course. So I don't know if it's weird, but these were the flowers that I picked up on the walk later that day. I think he was trying to send me flowers he would have sniffed. And then this is from his cremation and memorial. If I read it out, I am going to cry. So I'm not going to read it out to you. I also am very grateful that you guys are here and going through our story with us. And then I reserved this space for a letter to my best buddy, who was an angel on earth, sent by God to grow up with me and go through all the young adult transitional phase things with a non-judgmental sniff. Maybe he was judging me in his head, but I have no way of knowing that. And he always knew how to be around in the way I needed, whether it was nagging me to go for a walk or just sitting beside me as I complete a set in the gym. So this has space to remember him, hence the word memory. And then more of his fur. I have lots of blank craft pages for the balance of the quarter to fill up. There, so I'll be working on that this coming weekend. What I like about freeing up the rest of the Traveler's Notebook, because it's not housing my planner anymore, is it can house 1 or 2 more inserts. So I currently have the Japan travel insert in this. I used a dedicated insert for that trip because I knew it would just be chock full of ephemera and pictures. I'll probably be going through how I travel journal and avoid, or as much as possible, never have backlog in another video. But yeah, this is my November and early December trip to Japan and the beloved Kurashiki. I'll have a video with a store tour. I won't spoil this one too much. And for those of you who saw my other video, you would know that in my quarter 4 2025 insert, the Japan trip was just so full of memories that it spilled over there too. So I have a gigantic maple leaf that fills up 2 pages on that quarterly insert. So go check it out if you wanna. Learning from what took place in Japan, I have this trifold, clear fold to gather ephemera when I'm on the go, which is usually when I'm traveling with this traveler's notebook. How fitting. Okay, so there. That's my visual memory keeper. My life book has my thoughts, my words, fountain pen ink flowing from my fountain pens onto the pages, my metrics, and my milestones and goals in life. This has the visual part of it. Ephemera, photos, as much as possible. I try not to be very text heavy in this one, if you guys noticed. And it's a really good balance to my life book. In terms of systems, I have one that focuses on life, one that focuses on moments, and the third thing is for everything in between. This is the Hobonichi Hana cover. It's the calligraphy for the character, which means Hana, or flower, by Yuichi Inoue, who apparently makes these with gigantic brushes, like larger than a human. So that was very impressive and impactful for me when I saw the process. Let me talk about the system I used for the past 2 years, actually, when I first started getting into Traveler's Company, is a passport-sized version of this one. So it has the same concept. It's secured with these jump bands, and you can put in and pull out inserts as needed, which really worked well for me, especially because I had a zipper pocket insert, and I would always have a fountain pen, a tiny Kaweco Sport. That's tiny and beautiful and just so reliable. So I would always have this paired with my olive green passport size, which is a little smaller than this. It's about up to here. And I would pull it out anytime I needed, like I was in a cafe or a restaurant, or sometimes even in church or at the bank. The thing is, the inserts of those passport size are quite thin, and they would fill up really, really quickly. And I'd have to toss them. The first few pages of those things would always contain things that I would need for the whole year, mainly my budget or my errands list per month. Similar to how I upgraded my Sterling Ink Common Planner, I observed what worked and what needed some tweaking, and I came across this system. I've been using it since the start of January, and it's been working wonderfully. I really like the Avec because it splits the year into 2 books. So January to June and July to December. My brain kind of goes through this thing mid-year where even if a system is absolutely working for me, it loses its novelty by mid-year. So I need something to change, and I didn't want too much to change. So I really like that I get the freshness of a new book come July. It was something to look forward to. And luckily enough, I'm pulling out the July book right now. I got a new case for it. So at least this doesn't get too beat up because this is always on the go with me. So this is the Mina Perhonen cover. It's just so joyful. I picked this up in Loft in Japan. It was meant to hold the Hibino, which is where I'm rewriting the Bible over the course of the year. The thing is, it didn't fit. So the Hibino was quite thick, and I didn't notice that this would not fit it. So I figured I could use this to spark more novelty come July and December. I haven't sprayed this yet with anti-stain. I want to research first if it will affect the embroidery or not. But yeah, that's my everyday carry system cover. The Avec in A6 has your monthlies. This overview mimics my life, but in a bit of a messier think out loud way, which I like because I don't have to be perfect here. I can white out what needs to be whited out. This is just think on paper, and then more or less what actually happens week to week goes into my life book. So this is like as plannery as a planner gets. Then you get the dailies. I intended this Avec to really focus on more details for my projects. I wanted a place where I'm really tracking day to day if I squeeze in small tasks which are aligned with my personal projects, not just my daily work and exercise. One of my projects is passing the N5 certification in July and N4 in December. You can see me practicing hiragana on a day-to-day basis here. I also take note of gym schedule, classes, etc. so that I can make sure that I'm more or less sane, not trying to do 100 things all at once. And it has that really nice change in color that Hobonichi is known for. I think the Avec A6 is really only released in Japanese, which is great for me because I get to practice reading. So again, try to find things that stack. The design of the A6 blank notebook that I took to pair with this for all of my project-related notes is also by Hiroko Kubota. This reminds me of a city I've been to in Japan called Onomichi. And the first time I laid eyes on Onomichi, it was evening and the cityscape was just twinkling right at me. So yeah, this little fox sitting on the high wire, I don't know, it gave me comforting, cozy vibes. So I liked it when I opened this notebook. It's really encouraging to see my structure on one side and space for my hobbies and projects and just general thoughts. Even my budget goes in the front section too. So every Monday I check in my bank balances, expenses up ahead. Just keeps me mindful of things, you know. That's my everyday carry system. So all told, it's really just 3 pieces of a whole. So there you have my everyday carry, my visual memories and events. And then, oh no, my little bear fell. And my life book. Let's put the cover right beside so that you can see. Now that I think about it, it's kind of like small, medium, large, isn't it? Oh, and for anyone wondering, my workhorse fountain pen, this is a fountain pen. If you'll notice all the ink on my hands, it's very genuine, very genuinely me. And also all of the calluses here, that's from lifting. This is a copycat of the very polarizing Pilot Vanishing Point. This is from a brand that used to be called Moonman and is now called Majohn. I don't know if you're noticing a pattern in how I test things out. They have to work for a couple of months before I really commit to a bigger expense. So because this is a copycat in terms of design, and it's a steel nib, not a gold nib, it is substantially cheaper than the Vanishing Point. Only after using this for a solid, I think, 8 months, then that's when I committed to getting the Decimo, or the slimmer version of the Vanishing Point. It's very easy to see all these posts in the journal and stationery community and just want to have and buy everything, but I would like to encourage more intentional use and really not feeling too bad if someone else's system doesn't work for you. The person who knows ourselves best is really us. I encourage experimentation, innovation, trying to work with what's already working for you. And if you feel that nothing is working yet, starting small, just so that it becomes more sustainable in the long run. That's my simple 3 notebook ecosystem. Thanks for being with me while I talk through them. And I hope you were able to get something of value as you joined me yapping. Gogi going on ahead doesn't mean you won't see him on the channel anymore. In fact, it means I'm going to take every opportunity to recycle and integrate even the oldest, grainiest footage I have of him. But I know he lives on in spirit, in memory, and in my hearts. And with every new walk that I take where he's not tangibly there, he's padding along right beside me. I hope by sharing this authentically, it also helps those of you who might be going through something difficult too at the start of this year. I hope that you have a space, even if it's just a notebook, to go through it without judgment and work through it one step at a time. That's what I wrote in today's daily entry. Did you still get sad today? Yes. The weekly setup in my work weeks, which includes a short recap of the past week, made me sad. Will we get through it? Yes. Even if it means the occasional cloud or having to pause from life. But if there's anything our fluffy boy taught us, it would be how to keep walking. Thanks for indulging me and all my yapping, and I hope that as you walk along your days this 2026, you also find something that works for you and puts you closer to the you want to be. Thanks for keeping me company, and I'll see you in the next one.